Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Rocket Chiro Podcast, a business and marketing podcast for chiropractors. My name's Jerry. I'm your host. I'm a former chiropractor. I help chiropractors now with their websites, local SEO, and I help chiropractors get started or chiropractors who are stuck get unstuck. And I do this little podcast. So today we're going to talk about something that I've actually been wanting to talk about for a while, and that is why does chiropractic sound like a religion sometimes from some chiropractors, and is it helpful? I don't know that this is something that is, I don't think there's going to be a conclusion at the end of this. And I definitely am not the person that's going to tell you that I know everything as far as like what should actually happen in this situation. But I do think that there are some extremes within the chiropractic profession, and within the diversity of the profession, there are two, what I would consider very drastic extremes. On one side of the evidence-based chiropractors extreme, you're going to have chiropractors who just think that chiropractic is bones and joints, and we shouldn't do anything else. We shouldn't talk about anything else. It's acute care only. And essentially what they are is sort of a different version of a physical therapist, which I think is sort of the nightmare of the traditional chiropractor, is like that idea of the profession heading in that direction. But there's a whole segment of chiropractors that's what they believe. And they would even go as far as saying we should be doing injections and we should be doing prescribing and things of that nature. And so I think that that's on one side of it. The other side of it, you have the sort of religious zealots of chiropractic. There's people that speak about chiropractic in a very new age, kind of religious, spiritual sort of way. And this has been around for a long time. And I would even say it's been around from the beginning, because I think D.D. Palmer and B.J. Palmer were both that way. They were sort of into new age healing, and that is how chiropractic was born. It was kind of born out of that thought process and those philosophies. And even though over 100 years has passed since chiropractic was discovered and chiropractic was developed, there's percentage of chiropractors that when you hear them speak about chiropractic, they speak about it in a way that sounds like a religion. It sounds like they are evangelizing people and discipling people into this belief system. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today, like just where it comes from, and why I think it's problematic for chiropractic as a whole, and what I think chiropractors should do. But I kind of feel like anybody that's on the extremes, you're probably not going to listen to my podcast anyway, and you're probably just going to stay in your little camps. So maybe this is just an in-house discussion for people that like to think about things, and maybe that's all we're going to do today. So before I get too far into that, I do want to remind you guys that I do create websites for chiropractors. And if you want a website that attracts new patients, that's simple, it's lightweight, it works really well, and it's really good at converting non-patients to patients, then go to Rocket Chiro and take a look at my chiropractic websites. If you want some help with local SEO, I can do that as well. I focus mainly on the Google Maps rankings, and that's also a service that we offer through Rocket Chiro. If you're listening to this podcast and you're getting ready to start as a chiropractor, or you're feeling stuck, you've been out for a few years and you're not quite where you want to be, check out my Next Step program. My Next Step program is a great place to go beyond the podcast, get a little extra help from me, a little bit more in-depth information to be able to just kind of get you headed in the right direction, get your business and marketing foundation underneath of you, get that firm, and allow your practice to head in the right direction. So all of that can be found at rocketchiro.com. I also offer a free website and SEO assessment, a free review of your website and SEO. So if you just want me to look at your current stuff and give you some recommendations, I'd be happy to do that with no obligation. All right, so let me say a couple things before we get too far into this. First of all, I'm not at all against religion. Like, I consider myself a Christian. I consider that the most important part of my life. It is the foundation of my life. And so I'm not at all crapping on kind of religion as a whole. The other thing I want to say is I'm not talking about the idea that the body can heal itself. Or actually, I would even go as far as say I'm not even talking about subluxation, because I think that there are plenty of chiropractors who use the word subluxation, use the philosophy of subluxation as part of how they practice and their practice style and their own practice philosophy, but they're not in this category of speaking about chiropractic in a way that sounds religious, kind of has a religious tone to it. The idea that the body heals itself is not something that requires kind of a new age, innate intelligence, the light within you, God within all of us sort of idea. It doesn't require that at all. Every single person, even the chiropractors that are the metapractors that want to subscribe and they want to do injections and they want to just do musculoskeletal, they have to agree that if your body is not going to heal itself, then it's sort of a moot point. Like it's not something we can't do anything. Even if you give someone medicine, if your body does not participate in the process of healing, it has no effect. It doesn't do anything. So we all rely on the body's ability to heal itself. And so those fundamental ideas and philosophies that are within chiropractic are not exactly what I'm talking about. So let me just kind of draw some parallels here, and we'll between like religion and chiropractic, and I'll tell you what I'm talking about when I say that chiropractic can sound like a religion. There's some overlap from the standpoint of, chiropractic has sort of a mystical origin story. The whole story of Harvey Lillard, even between D.D. Palmer and B.J. Palmer, there's some discrepancies in that story. People will say one thing was done, one thing wasn't done. They'll say this happened, that didn't happen. There's sort of this thing, this sort of a miraculous start to chiropractic that has a really great feel to it and has a very religious feel to it. We also have our sacred texts. We have our green books. If you've never read a green book, I have. I've read multiple green books, and I have been deep in chiropractic philosophy. When I was in practice, I did mostly upper cervical, and you don't practice upper cervical typically without being in the philosophical side of the pool. And so I was around a lot of philosophical chiropractors. I was in some of these groups that are very chiro-religious groups in the past, and so I've seen this firsthand, and I've sort of come out of it. I don't want to say like I've deconstructed my chiropractic faith or anything like that, but I recognize that some of the things that were being said and some of the things that are said are really just New Age philosophy, and it really isn't chiropractic, and it really isn't religion. It's just sort of its own thing. So we have our founders and our origin story, which are sort of miraculous in origin. We have our sacred texts, the green books, and the 33 principles. We have our rituals, which is the adjustment. And I know a lot of chiropractors won't necessarily say that the adjustment is a ritual, but a lot of chiropractors, they get adjusted once a week, whether they need it or not. They get adjusted multiple times a week. Sometimes they'll get adjusted multiple times in a weekend. So there's a little bit of a ritual that's involved with the adjustment. There's a belief in something greater, something in like a life force, the innate intelligence. There's a bit of an evangelistic element to this segment of chiropractic. You'll hear people talk about saving lives, and they'll talk about it's not just a job, it's a purpose. I was on Instagram recently, and I watched a reel that's from, I would say, one of these segments, or at least the person who's talking would fall into this category. And he was talking about your purpose and your calling. And there's just the language that's used. There's just this muddying of the water between spiritual things and chiropractic. And so it's definitely a very prevalent thing still. Even within our groups, just like within religion, I can't speak of other religions, but I'm well versed within the Christian religion. Within the Christian religion, there are different denominations and different sects of, there's, Baptist or Presbyterian or Methodist or Catholic or whatever. And then within chiropractic, you have, even what we've talked about, you have the subluxation based, you have evidence-based chiropractors, you have more, even within those groups, you have your gondroids and your upper cervical, and even within upper cervical, you have knee chest guys and Blair guys and Nuka guys, and there's instrument adjustments, and there's activator and pro adjuster. And we have our groups, we have our little niches, and I think that this is something you see a lot in religion as well. I think the thing that's my concern is that I don't think that it's particularly helpful for chiropractic. And maybe I should have started with this, because I'll kind of jump ahead in my notes to why I think that this is a problem. And we'll kind of get into why I think that this is still happening. Why is this, after 100 years of chiropractic, still a very prevalent thing? Even though we've learned more, we've changed more, we've had the opportunity to change and kind of evolve as a profession. And some people just haven't, some groups haven't. the part of me that I think there's two major problems with this sort of line of thinking, just like, because we could just say like, let it sit, like, who cares? Like, why talk about it? Who cares? It's a segment of chiropractic. Like, it doesn't really matter. But this segment of chiropractic oftentimes is the loudest, and they are oftentimes the most evangelical in their approach. And so I don't think that it's insignificant. But I think what ends up happening is, number one, is it creates confusion. There's this confusion between chiropractors themselves. If you sit down with 10 chiropractors and ask them what is chiropractic, you're going to get 10 different answers. This has been a problem for our profession for a long time. And I'm not saying that I have the perfect definition or explanation of chiropractic, but we don't even, I mean, we don't have a clear thing of like what it is. And some chiropractors who are so passionate about their perspective, which is like, oh, well, we do, bones and joints. And then the other person's like, well, we turn on your life force and your power is on. It just creates confusion. And I don't think that there's this idea of a city divided amongst itself will never stand. It's like you can't be a profession that moves forward and grows when the profession itself is not heading in one particular direction. So I think that's a problem. The other problem is that, let's say we all decided to just abandon the musculoskeletal approach to chiropractic and we were all in on this like evangelical idea of chiropractic, this sort of religious idea of chiropractic. The problem with that is that you're dealing with about 2/3 of the population that are never going to be on board with that. And I say that because, like, if you look up numbers of like how many people go to a chiropractor, and the numbers, I don't even know how accurate the numbers are, but I'll tell you the numbers you'll find. If you're trying to find how many people in America, and I focused on the United States primarily, but how many people in America have ever gone to a chiropractor? Like, what percentage? And the numbers you're going to hear are somewhere around 50%. That means that 50% of the population at some point in time have gone to a chiropractor. Now, that might be a little high. Like, I don't actually know. I mean, you always hear numbers lower than that, but the lower numbers are what percentage of people have gone to the chiropractor in the last year. And that number drops down into the teens. So you're looking at 12 to 15%. It's a much smaller number. So there's a very, very small percentage of the population who are regularly or actively under chiropractic care. There's obviously a larger percentage of the population who have gone to the chiropractor at some point in time. But that's all chiropractors. That's not just like the above, down, inside out chiropractors. It's not just the evidence-based chiropractors. That's all chiropractors. So if we take into consideration like all chiropractors and all options, all the different 31 flavors of chiropractic that are out there, we're still only getting 14, 15% of the population on a somewhat regular basis. If we all decided to be religious zealots for chiropractic, that number would just go down. And the reason it would go down is because there's a third of the population. So, and I would say probably a third of the people who are in those categories. So 1/3 of the 50% of people that have gone to chiropractor and 1/3 of the people who are actively under chiropractic care. So I would say that, 1/3 of the current group that we have that are going to chiropractors, they're not open to those new age philosophies and those kind of mystical things. It's the type of stuff you're going to hear with like Reiki therapy. And if you do like yoga, not the stretching yoga, but like the philosophical yoga, the light within the third eye, like that sort of thing. Like if there's a percentage of people, and I would fall into that category of someone who's like, I'm not open to that. I'm very open to Christian biblical things, which many of you may not be. I'm not at all open to third eye, this new age God within me, God around, like philosophy. I'm not. So I would fall into that category. And if that's what chiropractic was, and that's what chiropractic is, I'm not going to the chiropractor anymore. I'll just go to somewhere else. I'll do something else. Like, I'm just not doing that. And so what you would actually see is if chiropractic went into that realm is you're basically cutting yourself off from 2/3 of the people who go to the chiropractor currently and 2/3 of the people that would ever consider going to the chiropractor. It's not a line of thinking, and it's a particular person. And I'm not saying that those people, maybe that particular person is going to not be interested in a less romanticized, less religious explanation of chiropractic. Maybe they will. Maybe the person who does the Reiki therapy, and maybe the person who does the yoga in the kind of the traditional sense, maybe those people aren't going to go to a chiropractor that doesn't explain chiropractic in a fluffy way, a religious way. Maybe they won't. But you're still dealing with 2/3 versus a third. And I would use every other medical profession that's not new agey as an example of there are more people interested in non-new agey ways of getting better than people that are interested in new agey ways of getting better. Because everything that we could possibly compare this to, like everything that we could possibly compare, like those sort of philosophies and that approach to health and wellness and healing and whatever, anything we can compare it to when compared to anything more traditional, more scientific, more evidence-based, it all falls drastically short. There's just a much smaller percentage of the population that is going to be interested in that. Now, some chiropractors take that as a challenge. I don't think that's smart. I don't think it's smart marketing. I don't think it's smart for our profession. So those are the two major problems with it. Is I think that you're creating a marketing message that is never going to be widely accepted. Never. And it's part of the reason the chiropractic profession hasn't been widely accepted. That, along with the fact that there's a lot of confusion because there's people that are saying chiropractic is different things. And those chiropractors who don't do weird things have to be accountable for the things that chiropractors do that are weird. Kind of sucks. I did that when I was in practice. And it wasn't, I wouldn't say it was weird chiropractors, it was dishonest chiropractors, but the same principle applies. I was in an area where there were some chiropractors that were doing some very dishonest things, and they were a very big practice. It was a multi-location practice, and they were doing dishonest things on a wide scale and had really ruined the name of chiropractic within the area. And I had to deal with that. I wasn't doing that. I wasn't them. I wasn't saying and doing the same things they were saying and doing, but I still had to deal with it because I'm a chiropractor. And I think that's the problem with this kind of religious idea of chiropractic. And where does this come from? So if you don't know where this comes from, it comes from the fact that, one, we talked about this already, it's baked into our history. The founders were this way. It's baked into our history. I think it also gives chiropractors a bigger purpose. I think there's something within all of us that wants to be purposeful and wants to do something bigger than ourselves. And when we don't have something like that in our life, then we're constantly looking. Some people look more aggressively than others, but there is that thing that's inside of us. And I do think that this sort of idea, this I know something that you don't know, body can heal itself, the light within you, your power is on, the kind of mythical, religious, discipleship thing, purposeful thing that chiropractic can be, the D.D. Palmer, the B.J. Palmer approach, that sort of thing, it kind of resonates with that idea of I want to do something bigger than me. I like knowing things that other people don't know. I like having a purpose that's beyond just making money and going to work. So I get that. It clearly makes chiropractors different, which I think appeals to a lot of chiropractors, including myself. I don't want to be another physical therapist. I went to school originally to be a physical therapist and decided to be a chiropractor. I didn't want to be a physical therapist. I wanted to be a chiropractor. And I think that those are distinctly different. And I think most chiropractors want to be different than other professions, including physical therapists, medical doctors, whatever. I think the cycle repeats because I think that the schools that tend to go in that direction with their philosophical, maybe even they have people come in that are having this sort of extreme philosophical view of chiropractic, they attract that person, that 1/3 that we were talking about. They attract that 1/3 into the profession. So the 1/3 that is super excited about the message and about the evangelism and about the God within me, light within me sort of thing. The person who loves Reiki and also excited about that type of chiropractic, that person is really drawn into the profession. And so it sort of repeats itself because of what it's putting out there, which kind of makes sense. If we'd stop putting it out there, we'd probably stop attracting these people into the profession. And I'm not saying these people are bad people. I'm just talking, just having a discussion, guys. Calm down. I also think it's an easier way of practicing. And I don't mean that as an insult. I think that anytime you go to a more philosophical approach to chiropractic, even if it's just subluxation-based chiropractic, I do think it's an easier way to practice. I think it's an extremely easy way to practice if you're saying, we don't heal anything, we don't fix anything, we don't do anything, we just move the bone and let, God do the healing, or let the God within you do the healing, or turn your power on. And we just do that all day, every day with everybody. And that's all we do. Like I'm just a guy going around flipping switches, turning lights on, turning lights on, turning lights on. It's an easy way to practice. So I think that's appealing. There's something about that that's appealing. Also, the part of me that is a Christian and the part of me that does believe in God thinks that we are, and this is me. This is a side note. You don't have to agree with me at all, but I personally think that all of us were created by God, and I think that all of us have a hole inside of us that is sort of seeking that fulfillment in that relationship with God in some capacity. And I think that when we don't have that in our life, we kind of go around looking for something that sounds like it. Or maybe we do kind of have that in our life and it's like that chiropractic message sounds familiar to us, or there's something about it that appeals. So I think there's an element of that that's going on as well, but that's just, that's my own 2 cents. A lot of people probably aren't going to agree with me there. So let's talk about whether this, if we get rid of the extreme philosophical approach, even if we were to get rid of the idea of subluxation or the word subluxation from the profession, does that just make us PTs? Does it? I think the answer is no. I wrote down a few things. Chiropractors still have direct access, which makes us different than physical therapists. We have our guiding principles. The body can heal itself. I don't think, even if you remove the word subluxation or you remove the extreme kind of new age philosophy from chiropractic, we still believe the body can heal itself. We're still spine experts. We're still joint experts. Chiropractors who are good at adjusting are the best at that in the world. They just are. There's nobody that's better at that. I know that there's some massage therapists and physical therapists, and there's some DOs that do manipulation of some sort or do some sort of adjustments. Get out of here. Get out of here. They're not even in the ballpark of a chiropractor who they know what they're doing. They're good with their hands. Get out of here. To compare us to that is just absolutely absurd and ridiculous. So purely from a performance standpoint, we are the best in the world at adjusting. I will die on that hill. We do have a whole body approach, and chiropractic is not about just treating injuries. It just isn't. And so if you think that's what I'm saying, it's not what I'm saying at all. There is a wellness component to chiropractic. There is a holistic component to chiropractic that whether we talk about subluxation or not, even if you just talk about posture and mobility, which I think is a great talking point for chiropractors, movement matters. Your posture matters. It affects your sleep. It affects your circulation. It affects your ability to exercise. It affects your body's ability to function. There's so much to say as a profession that we work with the spine and we work with the joints and we work with the muscle with the intention of allowing your body to heal if it is injured and allow your body to function at its peak. That's not fluffy. It's not new agey. I don't have to talk about the light within or the God within you, or I don't have to get you to believe it. It's not a belief system. It's just what we're doing as chiropractors. We are working with the spine and we are working with the muscles and the joints. And is there a nervous system component to it? Yeah, there is. What is that component? I'm not 100% sure. And chiropractors that think they're 100% sure aren't. They just aren't. We don't know exactly what the nervous system component is. There is evidence that adjusting the spine and mobility within the spine and things of that nature can affect things beyond the muscles and the joints. I think there's evidence that is research. It would be great if there was more research, more specific research. There's evidence within the context of practice. If you've been practicing for 5 months, you have seen people benefit from chiropractic beyond necks and backs. You just have, unless you're not paying attention. I remember asking my first chiropractor because he was a kind of a sports injury and just sort of a very mechanical type of a chiropractor, really good at what he does. Like he was I've been so blessed with chiropractors in my life, with chiropractors that are good at what they do with their hands. And it's such an awesome thing. And I remember when I went to school and I started hearing philosophy for the first time, I never heard philosophy from him. And I remember going to him and asking him, like, why don't you ever talk about this stuff? And he made the comment, he says, yeah, I see these things. I see people, they're getting off their medications, that it's not a pain medicine. It's something else. They're sleeping better. This is better. That's better. He's like, I see that stuff. I hear people talk about it. He's like, those are things that happen in the practice all the time. He's like, it's not the focus of what he does. It's sort of a happy accident. It's a side effect. It's an off-label benefit if we're talking in medical terms. And so that is something that exists within chiropractic. And it doesn't matter if we talk about subluxation or not, it still exists. Like people don't have to believe chiropractic to get the benefits of chiropractic. Like that's one of those things that kind of annoys me about the evangelizing of people into chiropractic. I do think it's good for people to understand how their body works. I do think that it's good for them because they can make better choices and make better decisions. If someone doesn't know that chiropractic can help improve their sleep, does that mean when you adjust them, you're not going to help improve their sleep? If someone doesn't believe that chiropractic can help their whatever, allergies or digestion or whatever it is, whatever the thing is that it may help, or help a baby sleep better or be less colicky or whatever, if they don't believe that, but you do the adjustment, are they going to not get the benefits from it because they don't believe? Chiropractic is not a religion. It's not a belief system. You don't have to have faith for it to work. You just don't. And you'll hear people talk about these, like your intention when you put your hands on people. And I understand that there might be something to that. There might be something to like the how that affects what you do. There could be something to the energy you're putting out. I don't know. But I do know that chiropractic is not a religion. It does not require belief on the part of the patient receiving the adjustment to get the benefits of chiropractic. And when we talk about it and sell it and present it as if it is a belief, and we put that onto our chiropractors and put that onto the people that we see, we are not helping the profession. We're not. I know you think you're doing a big thing, the big idea, and you're an evangelist, you're a suffering servant, you're willing to go to jail, you're willing to do all the things. Maybe that stuff had to happen in the beginning. Maybe chiropractors needed to be a little weird and a little crazy to get the profession off the ground. But maybe 100 years later, we can look at it and say, a lot of the crazy things that BJ said were just crazy things. Maybe we know more now. And that doesn't make chiropractic physical therapy. It's not. But it's also not that thing, that new agey life force thing that so many chiropractors are trying to sell it as. We also have long-term care as chiropractors. I do believe in long-term care. I think that people that have chronic conditions, people that have recurring injuries, people that have really like athletes, or people that have really stressful jobs where they're constantly beating themselves up, I think there's a long-term care component to the chiropractic that doesn't exist within the realm of physical therapy and stuff like that. So what should chiropractors do? So actually my final thoughts are this, like, why does chiropractic sound like a religion in some cases? I think the simple answer is because it is to the people that are talking that way. It is their religion. So when I say chiropractic is not a religion, I'm not saying it isn't to some people. I do think it is for some people. Like I can hear people talk and I go, yeah, this is your religion. This is your God. This is your spirituality. Like this is the thing that you find completeness in. That's not what it is. That's not what the profession is. And I don't think you're doing the profession any favors by getting your spiritual kicks off of chiropractic. Is it hurting the growth of the profession? Yeah. People aren't on board with it, and it's a mixed message. So what should we do as chiropractors? I think that you'll always hear me talk about being committed to excellence. I think chiropractors, when they are good at what they do, are the best in the world at what they do. I think what we do goes beyond muscles and joints. I think what we have to offer is something that so many people need, and it is so awesome. And chiropractic has absolutely changed my life. So if you guys I've had people accuse me of being anti-chiropractic. I am not. My goodness, I love chiropractic. It has absolutely changed my life. So number one thing, I think that chiropractors should be committed to excellence. If you're going to do it, be great at it. And I'm not telling you how to practice from the nuts and bolts. If you want to do ultrasound or whatever, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me. Just be good at it. Be really good at it. Don't offer a service because you did a weekend seminar and you can make an extra buck doing it. Like, don't do that. Don't be sloppy. Be a good chiropractor. I think we should focus on the benefits, not the belief. The benefits of chiropractic are amazing. The reason you're a chiropractor is because you benefited from chiropractic. Like 99% of chiropractors didn't pick chiropractic out of a book or out of a manual that went out of their college, counselor book or something. They picked chiropractic because chiropractic benefited them. And it's very hypocritical for chiropractors to be like, oh, well, people should come in and whether they're feeling bad or not or whatever. And they don't want to talk about the benefits of chiropractic. They don't want to talk about pain relief. They don't want to talk about that stuff. It's very hypocritical to say that when you yourself go to the chiropractor because of how chiropractic benefits you. If you didn't feel better in some capacity or function better in some capacity because of chiropractic, you wouldn't do it. So you are going to the chiropractor and you are a chiropractor because of the benefits. Talk about the benefits. People don't have to believe something. They just have to know it helps. People are very interested in the benefits. Figure out a way to explain chiropractic in a way that it doesn't sound weird to the average person. If you don't know if it sounds weird or not, then why don't you talk to some people close to you and ask them if it sounds weird? Hey, does this make sense? Does this sound weird? Does this sound religious? Does it sound hokey? Does it sound like I'm wearing a tin foil hat while I'm saying it? If you sound like a conspiracy theorist, if you sound like a nut job, if you sound like a religious zealot while you're explaining chiropractic, stop it. Figure out a different way. Say it differently. You're not helping. And some of those are different conversations for a different day. But stop explaining chiropractic in a way that sounds weird. It isn't weird. It's awesome. But people don't benefit from it because we're weird. I don't like that. It annoys me. Last thing is this: stop repeating things just because you heard them, just because you think they sound good. I do it. You do it. Everybody does it. I understand. We repeat things because they sound good. There's so many things I said in practice that I would never say now, just because I was repeating things that I was told, especially when you're new in practice. You just repeat things. Maybe do a little research. See if that's accurate or not. Talk to some people. Talk to somebody who's going to maybe kick back a little bit on what you're saying. It's interesting, the more people you talk to and the more people that are experts at different things, where some assumptions that we make about medical profession, we make about medications, we make about other therapies, we make about whatever. We make those assumptions and we don't really know what we're talking about because we didn't actually think about it. We didn't ask questions. So stop as a whole, as a profession. Maybe we could just stop saying stuff that sounds good, but doesn't really make a lot of sense. So those are my thoughts. For those of you who made it this far, congratulations. Most people didn't. They probably turned this off because they're not all that interested. I don't even know that I came up with a great answer because I think that the people that are going to treat chiropractic like a religion are going to continue to do that. But I think it would be interesting to talk about. It's something that's been in my brain. It's something I've kind of made some notes about. I've tried to record this podcast a couple of times and I didn't make it through because I just wasn't 100% sure why I even wanted to talk about it, but I did. So I'm putting it out there. I hope you guys enjoy it. If you have a chance to rate, review, leave comments about the podcast, I would really, really appreciate that. If you know a chiropractor that doesn't listen to the podcast, please share the podcast with them. You might not want to share this one with them because this one's weird, but there's other stuff, business and marketing, that's very super helpful for chiropractors. If you want help with your website or local SEO, or you'd like help getting started that goes beyond the podcast, then go to Rocket Chiro and check out our products and services. I'm done. I'm out of here. I'll talk to you guys on the next episode. See ya.